you're going to appreciate what you hear tonight. And you'll be better equipped to defend your family. And with that, let me pray and ask God's blessing. Father, we humbly bow before you this evening as we tackle this sensitive subject, as we look for answers and look for information that we can use to in the raising of our children and in the protection of our family. Father, I am so blessed to be a part of a community that cares, that would give up their time this evening to learn how they can become more effective parents. And so I ask you that you bless these families, that you give them wisdom and discernment, that they learn something tonight that will help them in their task of raising their children. Father, as the great hymn says, that this is your world, and lest we never forget that, oh, this wrong seems oft so strong, you are the ruler yet. So we do take comfort in that, Father, that you are a sovereign God, and that despite the attacks of the enemy, despite all the bad things that are out there, you are still on your throne. And you love our children more than we love them. And you will protect them. And you have given us a stewardship responsibility. And we take that seriously. So bless our speaker tonight. May he open our eyes and our hearts to the truth. And may all we say and do this evening be to your glory and honor. For it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. All right, I'm going to let Kevin Mosley, our upper school principal, introduce our guest speaker tonight. So, Kevin?
So, about 8 years ago, I was a young and wet behind the ears, green, whatever you want to call it, headmaster in Mississippi, going through some training, and I ran across a guy stepping up and say, hey, you're going to be dealing with this a lot, technology, and you as a headmaster are going to have to learn how to handle this. His name was David Drake, and so when Mr. McGee asked me, who can we get to come in after he got this plea, and I said, I know a guy, because I was really humbled, challenged, and quite frankly scared when I heard what he had to say. And it was the kind of fear that we need. The kind of fear, like Mr. McGee says, makes you want to stand up and protect your family. So I heard him speak, and I said, I want to see if he'll come. And I called David. David's an educator of over 27 years as a teacher, coach. He's taught physics and computers and all kind of things. And he moved over in administration in the Mississippi Association of Independent Schools. And he's assistant director of activities there and director of technology. And that's how I got to know him, through that organization. His wife Alyssa's here tonight with him. And he said, I told the Lord a long time ago, no matter who calls me, I will always go to do this presentation. He'll tell you it's not his favorite presentation to give because of the material and how challenging it is. But he said, I will do it in obedience, whether it's for one person or whether it's for 500. So I appreciate him coming tonight. Would you please welcome Mr. David Drake.
Test two, okay. I certainly do appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'm just thankful for Kevin and Bill and everybody taking such good care of my wife and I this afternoon. And look, I've got, this presentation is generally at least 3 hours long, but we don't have 3 hours. And so my problem is what to take out to cram into 90 minutes. And let me just say this, I don't like talking about this. This makes me sick at my stomach. Every time somebody tells me some story I've got to add to this presentation, that just means there's a whole other set of families that are just devastated by all this. And I just, it's a serious matter, folks. It really is. I want to start off by turning my clicker on. I want to start off by letting you know that this is not an anti-technology presentation. I am the director of technology at our association. I use technology all the time. I use an iPad every day. You're not here yet, but when you get to my age, you know, your arm is just not long enough to hold the book and your eyes just fail you. I can't pick my Bible up and read it, even large print, and read it the way I want to read it. But with that device, I can. I can make the text as big as I want. I can make it, white on a black background if I want to. I can do all those neat little things. And so I use an iPad, and it just is very helpful to me. I use a laptop. I use the one that you see right here to do presentations like this. I use laptops when I interact with our databases and the servers we have in our office. They're nice pieces of technology, just a really handy device. I have an iPhone, and it's like he was talking about a while ago. I can talk to you, I can message you, I can use my calculator, I can do all kind of things on that phone. I can find out how to get from Pearl, Mississippi to Frisco, Texas, because I didn't know how to do that, but my phone told me how to do that. I use all those things. Now, let me tell you what I don't do with those items, with those devices. I don't download pornography and view pornography on any of those devices, okay? I don't send or receive any immoral text messages or images. I don't get on social media and call anybody stupid or fat or ugly or any of those things. I don't challenge anybody to kill themselves because nobody loves you anymore. I don't do those things. The question is why? When I went to the Apple store and I bought my iPad, was I just so fortunate that I bought a good iPad? And the poor guy next to me bought an evil iPad, and he went home and he just didn't have any choice. That iPad's going to take over his life, and he's going to download pornography whether he wants to or not, and he's going to get involved in social media and do all kinds, whether he wants to or not. I know I'm being silly, but I want to try to just make a point here. Guys, this is not so much about technology as it is about behavior and about somebody's conduct and somebody's integrity. And I can tell you that parents have a hard time with that a lot, because when something happens with their child or in their family, I know what the first thing they want to do is. I want to blame it on her, or I want to blame it on her, or I want to blame it on that device, or something along those lines. And I'm going to tell you, I know, I'm not talking down to you folks. I'm a daddy. I know how it works. I've got 2 kids. They're both over their 30s. I'm even in a worse shape than you guys are in, because I've got grandkids about that tall. And I sit back and it just breaks my heart to think about what my children are going to have to do to fight against all this. And I'm just begging you to consider, before you start blaming it on devices, you know, the device has a big part in this, but before you start blaming it on the device, understand that when your precious little children were born, they're just like you. They've got a sin nature that's got to be dealt with, and that's what comes into play here. And I want to make another point, and I'm going to talk about my mother and my father when they raised me, what they were able to do. This is the sleepy little town of Durant, Mississippi, we'll just say. And my mother and father wanted to protect me and my sister, and they had a set of things that they wanted to teach us. And just in general, here's what they wanted to do. They wanted to take their son and raise him up so that at some point in his life, he would be able to stand on his own 2 feet, and that he would look out there and he would see evil and he would shun it. And he would look out there and he would see good and he would embrace it. And he would be a good representative of the family. That was their goal. Now, how do they do that? They don't just crack your head open when you're in the 3rd grade and pour something in and say, okay, we've done that, I'm happy. That is not the way it works. And you know that's not the way it works. Being a parent is tough. It is hard. When you start looking at verses in the Bible that start talking about training up a child, that doesn't take place in 15 seconds. That is hard work. And you know, for example, telling the truth. If my parents wanted me to tell the truth, they would say, David, certainly I want you to tell the truth. And when they saw me not doing that, well, they would correct me. And when they saw me doing that, they would compliment me. But the whole time they modeled that behavior before me. It was a training process. He said something a while ago that I hope you caught a hold of. It's not just the training, folks. while that was going on, you can call it whatever you want to. I drew a little orange wall around the house, but while that was going on, my parents protected me. They protected me from the outside world. Now, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about having to give account of yourself before God. I believe in the Bible. I have a biblical worldview about everything that I do. We all may say that, and we may have different nuances about different things, but from my point of view, I believe that I'm going to have to give an account for everything that I do, everything I say, everything I think. I'm going to have to give an account for the way I raise my kids. I'm not going to have to give an account for the way you raise your kids, and you're not going to have to give an account for mine. I didn't come over here to tell you at what age these people can stand on their own. Can they stand on their own in the 3rd grade? Have you taught them enough, trained them enough, protected them enough at the end of the 3rd grade? Or the 4th grade? Or the 5th grade? I didn't come over here to answer that question for you. That's something that you're going to have to answer between you and God. But let me tell you what my parents did. In my town, this is something that they protected me from. I never knew about this. There was a street in my town when I was growing up that you could drive down and you would see young girls and young women selling themselves for sex, for money. I never knew about that. That was in my town about 5 streets over, and it was at arm's length. I never knew about that because my parents protected me from that while they were training me. There was a place in town where if you wanted drugs, all you had to do was drive up to a guy, roll your window down, and give him $50 or $20 or whatever, and he would give you whatever drug you wanted. I never knew about that culture because my mother and my father protected me from that. They kept that part of town and all that at arm's length away from me. There were people in town, you can call them perverts, you can call them sexual predators, whatever your favorite term is. These were adults that tried to have relationships with little boys and little girls that were improper. I never got around any of those people because my parents protected me from that. When we went to the Little League fields, we went as a family. When we went shopping as a family. Everything we did as a family. And they trained me all during that time. They modeled the behavior all during that time. But they protected me all during that time. Now, something happened in 1990. My parents raised me in the 60s and 70s. In 1990, about that time, all of a sudden, parents looked up, and it was, again, like he said, looked up, and in their house, there's all kind of things that my parents used to protect me from. And the question is, how did it happen? Did the prostitute and the drug dealers and the predators, did they get together and come storm the houses of the parents and take over? That's not what happened. Unfortunately, what happened is Mom and Daddy went out and they bought a computer and they hooked it to the internet and they put it in their son's room for educational purposes. Okay? And there was a lot of education that went on, but it was not the right kind of education. And Mom and Daddy went out and they bought one of these things, nice big screen, cameras, all that kind of good stuff, and they gave it to their daughter. And while everybody else is asleep at night, they're in bed with their phone, with cameras, with videos, talking to people that you have no idea who they're talking to, that you would never approve of if you knew who they were talking to. They may be in their panties and T-shirts. They may have taken those things off. They may be snapping pictures and sending them out. Who knows what's going on? But that's how all that got in the inside of the house. And what our task is, what our problem is trying to figure out who needs what when. When have we trained our kids to the point where they can handle this? And I'm going to guess that a lot of you in this room tonight know a lot more than I do about this, but I'm also going to guess that a lot of you have absolutely no idea what the culture among young people is like right now. And we'll get to that in just a second. I didn't come over here to make anybody cry, and I know that seems like a stupid statement, but I went to a school about this size, and I spoke to the teachers one day, and it was a 3-hour deal, and the administrator came to me halfway through and said, "David, bud, you've got to slow down." I said, "The whole back row back there is crying." And I said, "Okay." And look, it was the kindergarten teachers, all right? I love kindergarten teachers, but let me tell you about kindergarten teachers. They love their little babies. And And they sat there and they listened to me talk about the world those little babies were going to grow up into. And it broke their hearts. And they were crying. And right after the break, I came back and I said, okay, guys, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset anybody. But what do you want me to say? Do you want me to stand up here and tell you everything's okay? Because everything's not okay. And guys, I'm telling you the same thing. I don't know what y'all thought I was going to come over here and say to you tonight. But if you thought I was going to come say, this has got to be one of the finest schools that I've ever been in my life. And I speak a lot of places. I kid you not. I don't say that everywhere I go. I've never said that. It's the first time I've said that. But if you want me to tell you that I think everything's going to be okay with your kids just because you send them to this school, and just because your preacher is a great Bible teacher, and just because your youth pastor is just a really good guy, he's just so good with the kids, and we have Bibles all around our house, and we meet together and we eat supper together and we pray before. If you want me to tell you that it's all okay, I'm sorry, it's not all okay. I'm fixing to tell you about stuff that has happened in schools and in families that are just like yours. Just like yours. Not a bit of difference. And again, it breaks my heart. I didn't come over here to make anybody cry. I did come over here. Family. And you notice I didn't say your kids. Not trying to make anybody mad, not trying to upset anybody, but I can just tell you, wives, some of you have got husbands that have problems with pornography, more than likely. And husbands, some of you have got wives that have got problems with things like pornography and possibly some other things. It is not just your kids. If you've never seen a family destroyed because an adult was involved in pornography, I've seen that. I've seen people lose their jobs. I've seen pastors who go back in their studies all by themselves, and they're supposed to be alone for 4 hours in the morning studying, and they got on the computer and they went down that road and they saw something and they stayed there and they lost their whole ministry because of that. I'm just telling you, that's the culture in which we live. This slide is not for your kids. This slide is for you. There's a verse in the Bible that says, I would have you wise into that which is good, but you better be very simple concerning that which is evil. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. I don't need to see a young adult. I don't need to see somebody having a sex with a young teenage girl to know that that's on the internet. I don't need to see that. I don't need to see somebody having sex with a farm animal to know that that's on the internet. I don't need to see somebody cutting somebody's head off. I don't need to see any of those things out there. Anything that you want to see is on the internet. There's a video somewhere where somebody is doing that and they're proud of it and they put it out there. In the name of protecting your children, please don't go down some roads you don't need to go down. Don't do it, because you can get, I've just seen folks, sin gets their hooks in folks, and it's hard to get out. About 9 years ago, however long my daughter's been married, she walked through the house and she said, "Daddy, what you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm fixing to go down to Parkland Academy and I'm going to speak to somebody, parents or somebody." And she said, "Well, can I see the presentation?" And I said, "Sure." So we had some great times together, and I went through the whole presentation. And when I got through, she just laid back on the couch and she said, "Daddy, how do you know all this stuff?" It's a really good question. She wasn't asking me how I knew how to use a computer and how to make a presentation look pretty and all that kind of good stuff. That's not what she was asking me. She was asking me, "Daddy, you taught us about Jesus. You taught us to pray. You taught us to walk with God. You modeled all this stuff in front of us. All these things you've said don't match the first thing you just showed me in that presentation. How do you know all this stuff?" And I gave her a really good answer. And it was a good answer on two accounts. First, it was the truth. Secondly, I adequately explained to her how it is I am where I am, and I want to explain that to you because I hope it gives more meaning to what I'm going to tell you very shortly. Back in 1990, we were talking about David Derrick earlier. David Derrick asked me, he was the then executive director of the association I work for now, and he asked me to come teach computer courses, technology courses for teachers in the summer. And before long, here's what it ended up being. I coached and taught most of my life, but I was free in the summer. So I would have a 1-week course, and I'd have 30 or 40 teachers, and I'd have them for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And so I'd talk for an hour about Microsoft Word or Excel or something along that line, and then we'd have a break. And during the break, here she comes up here and she says, "Man, we just had this happen at our school, and we're so embarrassed, and we don't know what to do. Has this ever happened anywhere else? What would you do about it?" And so I'd talk a little bit more, and then we'd have another break, and then she comes up here. And she said, "Man, we just had a rough board meeting the other night. This happened. We hope nobody else finds out about it. It's just going to be terrible if somebody else finds out about all this." And guys, I'm going to tell you, that went on for break after break after break, for day after day, for course after course, for over 20 years. And the point I'm trying to make to you, the majority of the things that I'm fixing to tell you about happen in schools just like yours, in families just like yours, with people that have chapel, with schools that have chapel, with schools that have coaches, that have Bible studies before they go, the whole 9 yards, folks. Yet these things were still happening. So please don't use that kind of stuff as a crutch. I had a head of school called me one day, this is right after spring break, and he said, "David, I've got a girl that has made some really bad decisions." And one of the decisions was she took a picture of herself without her clothes on. And the reason she did that is because she had been told, "You will never have a boyfriend, or you'll never keep a boyfriend if you're not willing to share, a nude image of yourself with your boyfriend." And so she did. She stood up in front of a mirror, and she took a camera and took a picture of herself. And she made another bad decision. She hooked that camera to a computer, and she downloaded that image onto the computer. She had a moment of sanity, and she came in there, and she threw the picture in the trash. But she thought when you put it in the trash, it goes away. Well, it doesn't go away. And somebody came along on that computer and found that image, and they sent it to one person. And in 30 minutes' time, everybody in the community had the picture. Everybody at Ole Miss had it. Everybody at Mississippi State had it. Everybody that she knew. They have confirmed that there's somebody as far away as New York City that has a copy of that picture. Now, for you daddies in the room, I want you to think exactly as much as you can about how you would feel if you were the daddy of that little girl. My friend that called me sort of set me up. He didn't really want to talk to me about this. What he was trying to do was ask me if I would talk to that girl's daddy. And folks, I don't know about you. I don't have a button that you can go back in time. I can't fix that. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I couldn't figure out how to say no. But I didn't want to say yes. And so I reluctantly said yes. Well, a couple of days later, that man called me. And he said, "Mr. Drake, everybody's making fun of me. Everybody's picking on me. Everybody's laughing at me." He said, I didn't know what a digital camera was, and I bought it for my daughter. I didn't know what they do with a computer. I can't use a computer. I just know they're good things because they use them in education. He said, "Mr. Drake, I've got 2 more daughters, and I'm trying to learn everything I can so this does not happen to my other daughter." And folks, this man, when he walks in the auto parts store, he looks over there and he sees a group of guys and he thinks, "I wonder if they've got a picture of my little girl on their phone." And he walks into church and he looks back over here and he sees all the youth group back over here and he wonders, which one of those guys has a picture of my little girl on his phone? And folks, I'm telling you something, he's going to think that until he takes his last breath. He would have come over here with me tonight if I'd asked him to. I've actually had to do this presentation in his presence, and I cannot tell you how humbling that is. But if he were here, I'm going to tell you what he would say. You tell them to do anything that they can do so they never end up like I am. I am hurting, and I don't know how to fix it. I've got problems that there really just don't seem to be solutions to. And this is, he said, "Mr. Drake, I had no idea that boyfriends and girlfriends thought that that's what you had to do. And that's just what I find out the culture is." It's just sad as it can be, folks. That last night I said this girl accidentally had her image sent out. This particular one is not an accident. These were some people in our association, There was two guys and a girl that decided to get together and make a sex video. The two boys were going to have sex with a girl, and they were going to record it. And folks, you may not believe this, but there are sites out there that are begging your kids to do that very thing and to post it out there and to try to one-up somebody else, okay? Try to make a wilder video than somebody else has made. There are sites out there that are dedicated to that. And I'm going to show you in just a little bit how many hits these sites are getting. And the thing I think about when the administrators called me about this particular kid was a little brother. The little brother, when he went to school, the girl's little brother, when he went to school, will your sister sleep with me? Your sister's a slut. You think she'd go out with me this weekend? He had to listen to that all the time, folks. She didn't just ruin herself. She just didn't ruin her grandmother and her grandfather. And she ruined everybody in doing this. And look, I'm not saying there's not redemption for people that go down a wrong road. But what I'm trying to get across to you is I hope you understand these are not random things. These are not things that happen out on the left coast or up in New York City. These are things that happen with schools that are having chapel, where people are going to church. I'm just telling you, it happens. And so many times parents have no idea what's going on. I have a good friend that was... in our association, we have schools from Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. This particular head of school was in Louisiana, and he called me and said, David, believe it or not, there's a girl that actually left her cell phone on the kitchen counter when she went to cheerleader practice. And I told him, yeah, I don't believe that. I don't believe that a girl like that exists. But she did, and thank the good Lord she did, because the phone beeped, buzzed, or whatever it does. And Mother went over there and she picked it up. And the message that she saw, she wasn't real happy with. And so she just tapped that thing and started scrolling back. And she saw a whole conversation where her daughter is fixing to meet up, first of all, with somebody that she doesn't know the next night across town. And not only that, her daughter's like 14 years old, and this guy's supposed to be like 19 years old. Not only that, the mother figures, I bet you this guy's not even 19. I bet this guy's 30-something years old. So she went ahead and she answered, she replied to the text. And she went ahead and set up the meeting. And when the guy came, the cops were waiting on him. This guy was 30-something years old. Matter of fact, this guy lived about 50 miles from where I'm standing right now. Okay? He drove all the way across Texas and all the way across Louisiana to pick her up. When they checked this guy out, when they started doing research on him, he had like 150 girls. He was going up into Oklahoma. Folks, these people will go anywhere to get what they want. And these dumb little girls, excuse me, but who are 13 and 14, are on here talking to people, thinking that they're 15 and 16, and they're 30. They don't know what they're getting into. Now, they never should have been doing that anyhow. But I'm just telling you, it is a tough issue. This same head of school called me a few days later. And he to send pictures like that to your boyfriend. That's what girlfriends and boyfriends are told. That's what she did. I have a question, and I'm not trying to get a discussion going, but I'm just going to ask you to let you think about it. For just any of these things, let's just say any of these things apply to you, what would you do to keep this from happening? I know some people that would just never, ever, ever, ever pick up their child's phone and look at a text message because they feel like they're invading their privacy. Don't want to get into a discussion with you about that. If that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel. But I'm going to tell you, I know that there's a mother right now in Louisiana that's extremely glad that she did. And I know there's a daddy up in North Mississippi right now that wishes he had known about what his daughter was getting into, and he would have put a stop to it. So that's the kind of stuff that you've got before you, folks. I want to shift gears just a little bit, and I know everybody probably knows about Google, but I want to tell you some things about Google and ask you to think about this. If you have unfiltered internet on any device that you have. And it's unmonitored. I mean, there's just nothing. You could have a third grader. We could be talking about third graders, seventh graders, ninth graders, whatever. You know, this is the door to the internet, and I'm always fascinated with the Venus flytrap, so I use this example. This is just a little plant that eats bugs. And so I typed in Venus flytrap for my search words to illustrate something. You have all these tabs up at the top, and first of all, you just see all, where it gives you everything that's listed. And we've got millions of responses in just less than a second. But that's not what I want. What I want is, I want to see the videos. So I'm going to click on the video tab. And so when I click on the video tab, it's going to filter out just videos. And so maybe I want to go down and look at just this video. So this is what's going to happen. This is what it's going to pull out for me, okay? And so I've got a video here, and I'm going to play a little of it. All right, it's a great teaching tool. I've always been told what a Venus flytrap was. Now I know exactly what it is. I've seen it in action, all that kind of good stuff. There's another tab up there that says images. And so maybe I'm doing a research paper, and I want to get a hold of some images, so I'm going to click on that tab. And so now what Google is going to do is pull out all the images that have been labeled Venus flytrap, okay, from all over the internet. And I'm going to just describe this as being in row 1, row 2, row 3, and so forth. If you go down to like, and all those are legitimate pictures. If you go down to row 6, and your third grade daughter does it, I'm not saying that this would scare a child. I don't know whether it would or not, but this is a guy dressed up in a bug mask. This is not what I was looking for, okay? This is not what I searched on, but I want you to know this is what came up in the middle of that search, okay? If I go on down to row 10, now I've got a girl that doesn't have much clothes on, and she's inside of a flytrap, okay? I haven't done anything wrong. Your third grade daughter did not do anything wrong. She just typed in Venus flytrap. And this kind of stuff is showing up. And so when we go on down to row 10 and 12 and 13, the further down you go, the more apt you are to get stuff that is totally unrelated to what your search word is. And more than likely, you're going to end up with pornography. If you don't have a filter on the device and some type of monitoring system. So I want you to be aware that that's there, because a lot of folks, I mean, when they give their child a phone at any age, and they're over here playing with it, and they're over here searching for some stuff. Maybe we're going on vacation, you know, and I want to put in Orange Beach. Or maybe look, cheerleaders are great things. My daughter was a cheerleader. I was a football coach. I love cheerleaders. Cheerleaders supported our team. You go type cheerleader and see what comes up here, okay? There's nothing wrong with that word. But if you type it in, you're not going to get the things probably that you thought you were going to get. This is not all about pictures. This is about information. For example, I know you can't read that, but that says, how can I make drugs? That's what I searched on. And the very first thing that came up, I just chose to choose that. It says, make your own illegal drugs by buying legal ingredients. And so I just clicked on that, and here's what the article's about. It just tells us how people are doing this. And guys, they gave like 40 different examples. One of the examples was how to take morning glory seeds. And yes, I'm talking about the morning glory seeds that I plant for my mother every spring. You can take those, and you can make LSD from those seeds. And they've got like 40 other things that you can do. I'm not going to have time to show it to you tonight, but I've got a video in another presentation that I'm going to tell you about later, where it shows how you can take kitty litter and stuff like that, common things you've got in your house, and make basically cocaine. And I don't have to go across, you remember that road in the place I grew up? I don't have to go to that street anymore. I can do all this stuff in my house. And this kind of thing is taking place. Switching gears just a little bit, one of these courses that I was teaching one day was at Hillcrest Christian School. And I had one of the teachers from Hillcrest stand up. She didn't stand up, but she asked me a question. She said, David, I'm getting all this trashy email, and I'm just so sick and tired of it. When I open it up, there's pornography in it. I mean, it's just a mess. Why am I getting this? And she just kept on. I didn't want to answer the question in front of everybody, but she didn't give me much choice, and so I had to. And I said, well, it's one of two things. You're either somewhere down the line, you got on an email list, and somebody sold it to somebody else, and sold it to somebody else, and finally they sold it to somebody that's causing you all this problem. Or somebody in your house has been to some sites they shouldn't have visited. And she got to thinking about that. So she left class that day, and she drove home, and she read her son the riot act, and he just confessed to sins for days. She came back the next day, and she said, David, can I speak to the class? And I said, well, yeah. I didn't know what she was going to say, but she said, folks, let me tell you what. Please don't ever do what I did. I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. I went and bought a computer. I hooked it to the internet. I put it in our living room. This was going to be such a great educational tool in our house. And one day, excuse me, one day my son came to me and said, Mama, it's loud in here. It's just too much noise in here. I can't study. Can I take this and put it in my room? And she said, well, sure. Boy, she was thrilled because he was wanting to use it to study. And so they took it and put it in the room. Okay? Pretty soon, he was wanting to study so bad that he would just shut the door because he didn't want anybody to bother him. And pretty soon, he wanted to study so bad that he locked the door and wouldn't let anybody in there. And she just really hadn't thought a thing about it. She says, guys, I have taken tons and tons and tons of pornography, and I've just laid them right in my son's lap. And I did it. I did that. And it just breaks my heart. Please don't ever do that. When you give your kids a device, don't ask me what the age is. Are they able to stand on their 2 feet after the 4th grade or the 5th grade? This guy was not able to stand on his own 2 feet after the 9th grade or 10th grade, whatever grade he was in. I don't know where that age is. It's different for everybody because the training's different for everybody. But I'm just telling you that pornography is a real issue. One of the reasons I think it's such a big deal or is so prevalent is because what you have now, look, it's not like I had never heard of the word when I was growing up. I knew vaguely what people were talking about when they said pornography. And I knew in concept what they were talking about when they said Playboy or some magazine. But you know what you used to have to do? You used to have to go across town and go in a store where people could see you and buy a magazine like that. And you used to have to be a certain age to do all that kind of stuff. See, that's not what you have to be now. All I have to be now is alone in my room. And people, and I'm talking about kids and I'm talking about adults, they're doing things in private they don't think anybody will ever find out about. That's what's changed. That's what happened when we had the internet come into our houses. My son has a verse he shares with me a lot of times about be sure your sin will find you out. I believe that. Having a biblical worldview, I totally believe that. I know people will get away with it, and they may seem to get away with it for what? But folks, I believe in the God of this universe, and He didn't put that in there for no good reason. And it happens. It may happen when they're adults. I've seen marriages broken up. It just hurts you to see what happens, and it's just a problem. Now, I'm going to ask you a silly question. I hope this is a silly question to you. Is it really a problem for someone to view pornography? Because I have actually been around parents that will say and that will think, well, hey, it's no big deal. People, that's just what young kids do. Again, your worldview may be different from mine, but my worldview is such that I understand Jesus to say, if I look at a woman to lust after her, I've committed adultery in my heart. That is a sin. That's how I view that. And I would tell you, I've got a letter that I'm going to point you to later. There's a letter that a 19-year-old girl wrote an open letter to her porn-addicted dad. I want you to read that. I want you to see how her mother just cries all the time because she feels so inadequate because she can never look like and be like what all this pornography portrays. She can never do it. And this 19-year-old girl, you know what? She can never, she doesn't even want to trust a guy. I mean, my dad is doing this. My dad has turned his back on his mother and my whole family and has been caught doing it. I'm just telling you, folks, it is destroying families. Google will list for you, and you can search this anytime you want to. They'll show you like the top 10 things that are searched on. You'll notice that 3 out of the 10 of these are related to pornography. You add all that up and you get right at a billion searches per month that have to do with this. That top link up there I had actually never seen that until, or heard of that until I was working on this presentation just a couple days ago to come over here. But a couple of those links are actual sites that have put, I told you earlier where people have sites out there where they want you to make sex videos and upload the sex videos. That's what that's about. That's what those top two sites are about. And I'm just telling you, it's a business. It's a business, and it's not going away. I was getting ready to go to Louisiana one night to talk to some parents, and I thought, I'm going to do an illustration here. I'm going to come up with the sweetest, most benign words I can come up with. And one of them was the word mom. I mean, there's nothing wrong with searching on that word. I didn't even have to get off the first page. Down at the bottom, there's a link to a pornographic video just by searching mom. I didn't search on sex. I didn't search on nude. I didn't search on XXX. I searched on mom. I searched on dad that same night. And that night, the very first thing I came across, there was I think she was in the 8th grade, there was an 8th grade girl that told all the boys in her class, I will take my clothes off for you if you come to my website tonight at 7:30. I'll do a dance for you or whatever, but I'll take my clothes off. And they had all come there and they were watching that video. Yes, and I said 8th grade. And they were watching that video. And her dad came in the room and caught her. And they kept on recording what they were seeing, and that's how that got put on there as dad. But there's nothing wrong with searching for dad. That's a great search word. How many pills does it take, sleeping pill does it take before somebody dies? I wish I could tell you that of all the teaching and coaching I've ever done, I have never lost a student to suicide. But I can't tell you that. And I've lost 2 or 3, and one of them in particular I think about is a boy named Randy. The boy did not like school, but he loved my computer class. And he came after school to come talk to me, and he was my friend. And when he got away from school, he got a girlfriend. And after a little while, she broke up with him. And he took a gun, and he put it to his head, and he pulled the trigger. And I'd give anything if I had about 30 seconds with that boy before he did that. Because I think that I could have kept him from doing it. But that's not the way it works. And folks, I'm telling you, let me tell you what he doesn't need. He doesn't need these guys out here begging him to kill himself. Folks, there are sites out there that will tell you how many steps up a ladder you need to climb so that when you step off to hang yourself, it breaks your neck and you don't swing there and suffocate. That's how morbid this is. You just have no idea unless you just go look for it. The culture. There was a little girl about yay tall, about 5 miles from my house the other day, that committed suicide. All because somebody called her something on some social media site. And she hung herself. It happens all the time. They don't need help. But this is out there. It's out there. We had a school up in North Mississippi, great school. And they had a 7th grader. This was probably 15, 20 years ago. There was a 7th grader that went home and learned how to make pipe bombs. And I'm talking about kind that really blow up and hurt people. He learned how to do that on the internet. 7th grader. And he came back to school and he taught all the other 7th grade boys how to do that. And they eventually ended up having to kick him out of school. Folks, if you don't have any kind of filter, any kind of monitor, you can see anything, you can learn anything. It is all out there. The picture on the left, I don't know how good it is, but that's supposed to be a picture of Johannes Gutenberg and the printing press. And you probably remember that the very first thing he printed was the Bible. Okay? And I'm going to try to make a case to you. I'm going to try to make the case that the printing press is one of the most evil devices that was ever invented. And the way I'm going to do that is by saying that, hey, you can go to some drugstores and convenience stores and you can see all kind of immoral publications. And if we didn't have that printing press, we just wouldn't have, what I hope you're going to say to me is, now wait a minute, David, it's not the printing press. It's the guy that's using the printing press. Don't you remember? The very first thing that was printed was the Bible. Folks, that's what and again, this is where people sometimes want to fuss and fight, and everybody's got their own opinion, so I'm just fixing to give you mine, that's all. Some people think that social media is the devil, okay? I'm going to bet that I'm looking at about 95% of this audience probably has a Facebook account. If I just had my guess, I'm going to say that's going to be the truth. And I don't really care one way or the other whether you do or not. But, you know, you would be surprised at the number of people that want me to come and tell somebody, either the teachers or the students or somebody, that something is evil. And I can tell you, I'm not going to do that. I know a lady right now who's got a son that's a missionary over in Morocco, and she communicates with that boy every day through Facebook. That is great. I am, and I can give you dozens and dozens and dozens of great examples. But folks, I can give you some really, really, really bad examples, how people are ruining their lives. And that's what you've got to balance out. Let me tell you another thing. All you parents, I know where most of you probably are. You may be easing over to some other things too. But if you ever listen to a kid talk, a kid is going to say, remember, we've got to go make our fake Facebook account. Because that's where all the parents are. And they've got to see our fake Facebook account. And they've got to see our fake cute little pictures and all the cute little things we're saying while we go over here to Instagram and everywhere else and live the lives we want to live. That's the way it's done, folks. I had one of my coworkers say that one time. Yeah, I got a Facebook account because I'm checked. I said, son, he is running circles around you. You think you're checking up on him, but you're not checking up on him. So you need to understand that. Also, you need to understand, let's say I had the power to go in here and just stab Facebook and get rid of it right now. Please understand that there are hundreds and hundreds of social media applications out there. Hundreds. And apps and everything else. So that's, you know, it can be used for good things. Listen, I'm a papaw. I am so happy to be a papaw. But grandson lives in Greenville, South Carolina, and I live in Pearl, Mississippi. And that is, if you want to know, 9.5 hours apart. Things like social media and things like texting and FaceTime and all this technology, I love it because I get to see my grandson. But these same type things are the things that kids are using at night sometimes to send out pictures they ought not send out. And that's the issue. Now, just for nostalgia, I know the ones of you that have Facebook know that this is not exactly what Facebook looks like now. This is just, I was teaching these classes all these years, and people kept on saying, well, you keep saying Facebook. What does Facebook really look like? So I went and I made an account one night, and then I went back to the class and did a screenshot and went back to class the next day, and I showed them. That's what it looks like. I uploaded a picture of my father and I watching a ball game. You've got this little place up here that says, a field up here that says, what are you doing right now? And you just tell everybody what you're doing right now. And then anybody that's your friend, anything that they say shows up on your wall. Just for the record, I don't care when you go to the grocery store. I don't care when you get in your car and go home, or where I don't care when you go on vacation. I will point out the thing about the vacation. Let's just say that I have a Facebook account and I told everybody, I'm in Frisco, Texas. I'm not going to be back until like Tuesday night at 10 o'clock. So still, everything I've got, and take your time. I mean, people monitor all this stuff. And so, anyway. But that's what Facebook is about. People just, you know, and some people do this with their real names, and some people do this with fake names, fake accounts, and fake pictures. You know, it's just it's a fake world that we've got going out there. I want to give you a couple examples of how some of this stuff goes south on us. I don't know if you remember the Virginia Tech massacre a few years ago, but there's a guy that walked across campus and killed a bunch of people. I killed 32 people, wounded 17. And at Penn State, for Halloween, there were a group of students that really thought this was a good idea to dress up like the victims of the Virginia Tech massacre. They thought this was a great idea. These are the folks that did that. And I'm going to focus on the girl on the left. I know you can't see everything, but she has a bullet hole in her chest, and that's blood that's coming down on her T-shirt. She's got a VT T-shirt on, you can tell. She's got a bullet hole up in her cheek. You can't tell that. But anyhow, she thought this was a great idea. All these guys thought this was just really cool. Well, and they thought it was so neat that they put it on Facebook. And they shared it with somebody else, and they shared it with somebody else, and they shared it with somebody else. And they finally shared it with somebody at Virginia Tech. Didn't think it was real funny. Who shared it with the president of Virginia Tech, who shared it with the president of Penn State. And long story short, this ended up being a national news story. Guys, if I'm doing this program 10 years from now, I'm going to be showing that picture. And I'm going to be saying what I'm about to say right now. If that girl, I kid you not, she's probably one of the sweetest girl you've ever want to be around. I don't know her. But if she comes in my office and she says, David, I would love to teach your 6th grade class, I'm going to say, baby, I will help you any way I can. But I cannot let you teach my 6th grade class. Because the minute you sign up and the minute that parent and that parent and that parent finds out that you thought that was a good idea, they're going to say, I don't want this woman anywhere around taking care of my kids. I want better judgment than that. And whether that's the right attitude or the right thing to say, guys, that's what happens when our kids put these things out there. It stays with them. You never get it back. You never get these pictures back. I'm going to throw a word on you here that has, I would say, a lot of different definitions, and you're fixing to see what I'm talking about, but the word is sextortion. And I think what I'm going to do is just show you the story I've got to show you, and you'll get what I'm saying. This happened through Facebook, but it could have happened through email and a couple other ways. There was a girl at a school, a pretty large school, and she sent out a Facebook message to all the boys in her school. And she said, I will have sex with you if you will send me a nude image of yourself first. Okay? And so she got 30 different classmates to send her a nude image. 30 different boys sent her a nude image. After she got in everything she thought she was going to get in, then she sent out another Facebook message, and it said, oh yeah, by the way, I'm not a girl, I'm a guy. And I will, you're going to have homosexual sex with me, or I'm going to take your nude image, and I'm going to post it everywhere, and I'm going to send it to everybody. There were 7 different people that complied with that. After one of the encounters, this boy looked down and said, I want a picture of your little brother too. And at that point, the guy broke down, went and told his parents, and that's how they caught him. This is a good example of sextortion. This is a good example of kids having done a little something or maybe a big something or whatever, and that gets used to pull them into something else. Happens all the time. I'll have some more examples for you here a little bit later. Bill referred a while ago to kids being able to hide things. And yes, there's an industry that's out there that's trying to help your kids hide the activity that they're doing on the internet, text messaging, pictures, trying to hide that from you. I've got this app on my phone if you want to see it when we get through. And listen, by the way, I can't get everything in this one presentation. I've got a resource page, and that's the address, and I'll give it to you later. But parents.msais.org. But this particular app, let me tell you what it does. It is a calculator. It is a functioning calculator. If you pick it up and you want to multiply numbers, it will multiply. But if I type in 1958, which is my birthday, that's my special code. When I type that in, it's going to go deep inside and take me to a browser that I can browse and you can't check the history. It's going to take me to a place where I store all my pictures, and they can be pornography or they can be whatever. I can have all my contacts there. It can be contacts of people that that we don't want you to know about. And if anybody starts walking up, all I've got to do is hit a button and then take my phone, look it over. You're not going to find anything. Tons of apps that are out there like that. If that doesn't scare you, it ought to scare you. I haven't got time to go in depth into these, but I do this another way, and I'll tell you about it later. But Snapchat, I do want to mention something about Snapchat. Some of you probably even use that and have figured out some good things to do with that. Let me tell you how this got started and what it's for. I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of teenagers that wanted to send naked images of themselves to their boyfriends and girlfriends, but they didn't want mom and daddy or anybody else to find out. And if I do it through text, somebody can find out. If I do it through email, somebody can find out. If I do it through Snapchat, Snapchat was invented specifically for this one thing. I can give an image of life of, say, 10 seconds, and I can send it to somebody. And so that somebody can look at that image for 10 seconds, and then boom, it goes away. That's what that program, that's what that app was built for. Now, there are other things you can do with it that you might say are legitimate things. I don't want to get into all that, but I'm just telling you that's how the kids were using that. Location services is a real neat thing. That's the only way I found where Frisco, Texas is. But there's some things about location services that you need to be aware of, and I think this video does a good job. I'm going to play the video and let you listen to it. Now, that's some scary stuff. And I don't know if how familiar you are with different browsers. Firefox browser is the one where you could put the extension in there and do that. I've done that just to see if it works, and it does. I want to shift gears just a little bit to cyberbullying. And I know that bullying and picking on kids is something that's happened forever. I understand that. But it's like I told you earlier, it's getting magnified because of internet technology. And we've got some things we need to think about as parents. One of them is you need to ask yourself, is there any way that my child is being bullied? And I'm not talking about seniors. I'm talking about fifth graders as well. There's a girl I'm going to show you in a minute. She was 10 years old. She hung herself because she was bullied. So you need to really think about that. And look, there was a girl that came in the house with her backpack. She put it down. She went and she had supper with her mom and daddy, and she went upstairs and she hung herself. And they just had no idea anything was going on in her life. Another thing you need to ask is my child bullying somebody? Because let me tell you what the definition of bullying is as I read through all this and I see this. There are people where 5 or 6 girls got together and called somebody stupid, fat, and dumb. And it was like a 5th or 6th grader. But they all ganged up on her. All of supposedly friends had ganged up on her. And she couldn't handle it. And her little mind thought the way out was to hang herself. And so just be aware. I'm going to run through a few cases here just to give you some ideas about things that are going on. This particular kid, Daniel Perry, he was 17 years old, and all this happened in 1 day's time. This guy, I say 1 day, maybe 2 days' time. This guy he did some stuff he shouldn't have done. He got into, I don't know if you want to call it a relationship or whatever, but he had an online girlfriend. And I don't know that he'd ever met her, but he was talking back and forth with her. And she convinced him to show a body part that he shouldn't have shown. Okay? And she may have done the same thing. I don't know. I don't know if she did it first and then told him, whatever. But after he did it, she says, okay, bud, you're fixing to pay me $200 or I'm fixing to send this to your parents and everybody else. It's extortion. Okay? He didn't know how to get out of that. He didn't know how to reconcile that. He didn't know how. He didn't want his parents to find out. He didn't want his friends to find out. He went and jumped off a bridge because he couldn't figure a way out. That's what he did. He was 17. This girl was 15. If you ever hear anybody talk about this, you're going to hear them talk about Amanda Todd, and for good reason. When she was in the 7th grade, she was talking to somebody that was supposed to be anonymous. And this guy talked her as a 7th grader into taking her shirt and pulling her shirt up and pulling it back down. She did that one time as a 7th grader. And this was an anonymous person, never going to see this guy again, never going to hear from this guy again. Well, a year later, he sends back a message and says, hey, I want you to put on a show for me, which means I want you to take off all your clothes for me. If you don't do it, I'm going to take your picture and I'm going to send it to everybody. Well, the cops come to her house and say, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but this guy's sending pictures all around. And it just devastated her. And right before her death, she put together this little slideshow where she tore pieces of paper and she wrote all kind of different things on there. But the one that I remember is this one. I can never get that photo back. I never can. This guy used her breast as the Facebook image on a fake Facebook page he made. I mean, he just let her have it all kind of ways, folks, and she couldn't handle it. And she hung herself. This girl, all of these are just sad stories, and I won't go into all the details, but the thing I think about when I think about this girl, it's 14 years old. And again, there were people, in this case, they were calling her slut and whore and all that other kind of stuff. It was a little bit more than dumb and stupid and fat and all that kind of thing, but she couldn't handle it. She hung herself on a tree so when people came to school that they'd see her hanging there. And she wrote her mom and daddy a note. And I want you to look at the note because I'm going to tell you, as somebody that has a biblical worldview, this bothers me when I think about all these guys. I want you to look at what she says. To all the bullies that have called me names, you're the reason why I'm feeling the way I do. I didn't want to die. I just wanted to be saved from the pain. Folks, these people think, apparently, that physical death is the end. And I'm telling you, just for me, as somebody that has I don't know whether she was a Christian or not, but somebody that has a biblical worldview, I understand that physical death is not the end. Please make sure you've had a conversation with your kids about that. I'm just telling you, these people had no idea. Their parents had no idea. This girl was 12 years old. She climbed up on top of a concrete silo and she jumped to her death. And her big sin here was she didn't show her breast. She didn't do anything like that. What she did was she stole somebody's boyfriend. That only happens about 50 billion times a day. But in her case, 15 different girls, all the people in her class, got together and called her names she probably didn't even understand. And it happened to be all her friends, and they did it on social media. Why she's on social media at that age, I don't know, but she was, and they were, and she couldn't handle it, and she killed herself. This guy right here, he was 11 years old. He had a a girlfriend. I don't know that he had ever met her, but she was an online girlfriend, and she was 13 years old, and he got on the internet one night, and somebody said that she was dead, that she had killed herself or something. Anyhow, he thought she was dead. And his little 11-year-old brain couldn't handle that, and he went and hung himself. Girl wasn't even dead. They were just playing a joke on him. But this kid, 11 years old, went in there, and he hung himself. This little girl got into a fight, that sweet little girl, and I'm going to tell you how it works. I've seen it happen. I've seen people get in a fight, and everybody around picks up the phone, and they turn their cameras on, and they hold them up like this, and they want to get a good video of it because we're fixing to put this on whatever social media site we like, and the video's out there. And that's what they did to her. They put her video out there, and she lasted for about 2 weeks. They picked on her, and I mean, she got beat up, and they humiliated her, and she hung herself in her room. The common themes as you read through all these, I'm not saying every single one, but I've just looked at too many cases. The common themes through all this, the parents say, we had absolutely no idea that any of this was happening. Another thing they say is, my child was so sweet and innocent. And folks, I understand, I'm not being insensitive. Please understand this. And I know at the time they said this, I can't even imagine what I would have said. But they said this. My child was so sweet and innocent. And most of the time, I'm just telling you, their child's not so sweet and innocent. I mean, they're showing body parts. They're doing all kinds of things are going on that they had absolutely no idea. They didn't check. They did absolutely nothing to check. They never looked at phones. They never looked at anything. I mean, people are taking pictures and sending them a text message, nothing. And it just is a mess. Almost all these cases were cases where people were using social media at the ages of like 11, 12, and 13. And I'm not telling you what the age is. I mean, they're your kids. But I'm just saying I see a lot of bad things happen when I see that happen. And of course, I've already mentioned that they thought physical death apparently was the end. I don't know if you've ever heard of this term before. It's called upskirting. And I'm not telling you about this because I want to talk about that in particular, but I want to ask you a related question. Upskirting is where somebody takes a camera and they come up behind a girl or a lady or somebody that's got a dress on, and they just stick it up under a dress and take a picture. That's real easy to do, okay? What if your sweet little daughter, who has never gone down any bad road at all, what if she's waiting to buy a book, or if she's at the counter or whatever, and what if somebody comes up and does that to her, okay? And what if she gets a text message or email a little bit later and says, hey, I've got this picture, and if you don't do, and you just fill in the blank, I'm going to send this picture to anybody and everybody. I think as a parent, you need to have a conversation with your children, not just girls. A similar type thing could happen with a boy, and I'll give you an example of that in a little bit. But I think you need to have a conversation, because some of these people, with their brains as young as they are, they don't know how to process it. They can't see past, they can't see when I'm 20 and 21 and 22. They just can't see that far down the road. And the only thing they know to do is either do other things that are going to take them deeper into the hole, or they're going to kill themselves. And there just really needs to be a lot of communication there. My son is a college women's basketball official, and he for NCAA, and he called me this last summer. He said, Daddy, you need to add this to the program. He's only seen this program about 50 times, and I said, boy, this must be good if you want me to add it to the program. And he said, when we went to camp, they put a pair of glasses on all three officials, and as we were going up and down the court, they wanted to be able to see what we were looking at. And when we made a call, they wanted to see where I was looking, and when we didn't make a call, they wanted to see where I was looking. They wanted to film the whole thing from the perspective of the official. That is some really neat technology. Now, I want you to think about that really neat technology. What if I put on those glasses and I walk into a boys' locker room while they're getting dressed? What if I walk into a restroom? What if somebody puts on those glasses and walks into the girls' dressing room? Folks, that kind of technology, it's like anything else. When it's used for good things, it's good. It's not inherently good or evil. But when bad people want to do bad things, that is going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem for all of us, and that kind of related stuff. Internet predators, I've just got basically a separate presentation about that, but I do want to mention one thing. One thing, kids, I know you can teach your kids, you can say, look, never give away where you live, never give away what your real name is, never give away what your school is, all that kind of stuff. Guys, it's so easy to get them. All you've got to do is just say, hey, I found this site where they were giving away iPhones, or where they're giving away iPads, or whatever. Hurry up and go there, because there's only 22 left, and then 21 left, and whatever. And, if you're going to have an iPhone shipped to your house, you've got to give them your address, and maybe even your phone number. And so instead of getting an iPad sent to their house, or iPod sent to their house, what they get is a predator that comes to their house. I mean, you can just get information from kids so easily. I know probably some of you may think we don't have any sexual predators around here. You can't even read the word Frisco, okay, because it's covered up. I've got an app on my phone that logs in all of the registered. These are just the registered ones. These doesn't even have anything to do with the ones that haven't got caught yet, okay? And this was like 2 or 3 months ago, whenever I made this slide. They're all around you, folks. They're all around you, and they all want the same thing. Live video chatting is, to me, one of the most scary things that we've got going. When I say pornography, some of you think about a picture. That's not what I think about anymore. That's what I used to think about. When I say pornography now, I think about video. Okay? And when I used to think about searching, I would search on Google. Well, my son would not search on Google. He would go to YouTube. He wants to see it in action. That's what the culture is now. Okay? And Omegle is just an example. Look, it's a great way to meet new friends. They're going to help you stay safe while you chat, and all the chats are anonymous. And remember, that's such a big thing. I can do stuff with anonymous people that I wouldn't do where people around me are going to find out. And basically what's going on here, folks, is you've got video. I can take my computer. It's got a camera that's looking right there at me, and I can talk to somebody, and I can see body parts, show body parts, watch somebody having sex. It's all right there. It's all right there. And that's just one example of hundreds of sites that are out there. Now, if somebody comes and tells your son about that, okay, and he's 14 years old, and he comes home and nobody else is home yet, and you've got a computer, rest assured that at least Omegle is trying to take care of you, okay? Because they have this nice big warning that says, if you're under 18, or you just prefer not to see all this sex, then just click cancel, okay? That's it. So either your son clicks cancel, or he's fixing to see all this other stuff if he clicks OK. And I'm just telling you, it's a mess. Not only do you think about, would your child visit this site, you better think about, because you may have all kind of filters in your house. But does the friend next door that he likes to spend a lot of time with, do they have filters over there? That's an issue that you've got to deal with. And there's a lot of things that have come up that way. I don't have a lot of time to spend on this, but I just want to mention, if you pick up a cell phone and start looking at text messages and things, you're probably going to see a lot of acronyms. And I'm not going to read through all this filth, but if you just go to Google and type in sexting codes, you're going to find a lot of stuff that will really probably surprise a lot of you. And you need to do it. You need to go type sexting codes in Google and just look at the list of the stuff that's out there. Okay? F me like the whore that I am. Okay? There's an acronym for that. You can look down through people's text messages and you can see things like that. I have been a coach for most of my life, and I'll be honest with you, I've never had time to watch ESPN. I didn't know who this girl was until it became a national story, but most of you probably know that that's Erin Andrews. She had a pervert that was following her around the country, and he finally got what he wanted. He went to event to event to event, and he finally got a hotel room next to hers, and when he did, he bored a hole through the sheetrock, and he stuck a little pinhole camera out into the room, and what he wanted was her to walk in front of that without her clothes on, and she did. And he took that video and he broadcast that all over the place. Now, did he go to jail? Yes. Did he get sued? Yes. Okay. But she never got that back, folks. She can never get that back. And you probably have heard of that. The thing that bothers me is you don't hear about all this other stuff that happens all the time. This is just one example. This was a kid down in Florida who had told all the girls, hey, girls, I will be glad to fix your computers if they break down. And he really did. I mean, if something happened, he really did fix them. But what he did in that process was put a program on there that gave him remote control of the camera that's sitting right up here on the top of the laptop. He had like 20,000 different pictures of this one girl in different states of dressing and undressing. And that's just one of the people. Folks do that all the time. And, you know, people, when they use their laptop, a lot of times they don't slam them down and shut the cover. And a lot of times they don't turn them around and face the wall. They're facing right out in the room, right where people want them to face. And if somebody has control of the camera, then that's an issue. We had an incident at one of our basketball games where somebody went in and, like, I'm mad at her, okay, and all the girls are getting dressed for the game. And so when she takes her clothes off to put a basketball uniform on, that's when I just get my camera out and take a picture. And then I just send that over to the junior high boys dressing room. That's how I'm going to get her back, okay? And, you know, that kind of thing happened. We had a kid, this was a 7th grader. This is not a senior, this was a 7th grader at one of our larger schools that downloaded an image of his teacher. Had an image of his teacher. He scanned the image of his teacher. He downloaded some pornography. He went and used Photoshop, and he cut the teacher's head off and put it on top of the pornography and meshed it all in and printed on glossy paper about 30 copies of what appeared to be his naked teacher. And he went to school the next day and passed it out to all the boys. And they had a very, very large board meeting after that. But guys, I mean, this is a 7th grader that did this. You don't have to be a second-year computer student to do this. These are little kids that know how to do this. I don't know if you know what Photoshop is, but it's a program. I mean, you just look at the top left. Does that guy have teeth, or did I give him teeth? Or down at the bottom right, is this girl a little larger, or is she a little thinner? Photoshop will do either one of those. And you can't tell the difference. Is that guy in front of a lake in the bottom right, or is he in a grove? Or is he in neither? Photoshop will do that. And you need to know that Photoshop, if you let your child upload a picture, any picture, if I've got them from here up, I can do all kinds of things. I can make them be naked. I can give them bodies. I can put blackheads all over their face. I can give them mustaches. I can cut their hair. I can make their hair longer. And folks, you can create profiles, and you can just start a whole storyline about somebody that you hate using Photoshop like that. I haven't got time to talk about everything, but I just would mention this one thing to you. I was talking with a parent about this the other day, and he said, you know, this is something that I need to do in my house. And, you know, knowing that a cell phone is a computer and they have access to everything, and when we go to bed at night, I don't want my child sitting in bed talking or doing anything on the phone or on any device. And we got to talking, and just a real good idea is just have a charging station in your bedroom at night and collect all the devices and put them in there and let them charge up. At nighttime, people need to be sleeping. That's what they need to be doing. They don't need to be chatting with people you don't know about. They don't need to be sending images or seeing images. That will not solve every problem you have, but I cannot tell you the number of people that have had bad things happen at night when people had the phones in the beds. And winding it up here, let me just say this. Your kids are being pulled to expose body parts. They're being pulled to cheat. I ain't had a chance to talk about that much, to cheat on tests. They're being pulled to do all kind of things. One of the things that bothers me the most, and again, from a biblical worldview point of view, and knowing the way that I think the majority of you think, I think your faith is important to you, and I think teaching your faith to your children is important to you. But you better know that there are people that are out there that are trying to just drag your children away from you. That's one organization right there that's trying to do it. Kids Without God. You're not the only one. And they've got all these kind of things that they tell them. And folks, I've seen plenty of people, come out of high school and come out of youth groups and go off to college and get indoctrinated. And it's when they come back, it's not a pretty picture. It breaks mom and daddy's heart. It breaks grandma and grandpa's heart. And just faith that you thought was there was not there. There's another group, and this is a very short video, but I want you to see this because I want you to get a grasp of what people are trying to do to your kids. They're trying to do this to your kids.
months ago, I was a Christian. The basic observation of the world around me and logical thinking, I've come to the conclusion that alongside the fact that there is no Santa Claus and there is no Easter Bunny, there is also no God. So without further ado, my name is Chandler, and I deny the existence of the Holy Spirit.
I deny God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit.
The Rational Response Squad wants you to make a short video declaring your independence from Estonia. Shoot your video and upload it to YouTube, and we'll send you a free copy of the documentary The God Who Wasn't There on DVD. The DVD normally sells for $24.98, but it's yours free when you make and upload your video. You already own a copy of The God Who Wasn't There. Remember, it makes a great gift. Find out more at lessoncount.com.
I deny the Holy Spirit, and I'm not afraid.
Now, just so you'll get a grasp of what they're actually asking your kids to do, you can go to that site. You can look that up on YouTube, and you can just see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have responded to that. And what they're wanting them to do is sit down in front of their computer and use their webcam and do this. And again, there's not 15 of those. There's not 20 of those. There's not, guys, they're just hundreds and hundreds. This particular, I think I have it here. This particular site has been viewed over 1 million times. I don't know if your children have viewed it or not, but this is just one site that's out there that's pulling your folks down a road that I'm pretty sure you don't want them to go down. And it breaks your heart. Well, folks, like I told you, usually this is about a 3-hour presentation, and I've just crammed in 90 minutes what I could. But let me tell you what I've done that I hope will be beneficial to you. I've got a resource page, and to get to it, you just type in parents.msais.org. And I'll give this to Kevin, too, and he can share with anybody that needs it. The presentation that you'll see in the top left is basically pretty much what I just did here. The things that I had to take out of this so I could get it into 90 minutes, you'll find in the second presentation. Let me tell you something I didn't talk about that's really important, and I can hear you laughing, and some of you laughing inside because you say, that would never happen to my kids. But the third thing I've got up here says evil forces recruit. And yes, I'm talking about ISIS, and yes, I'm talking about gangs. I was at a basketball game not too long ago, and the tech guy from the visiting school came up to me and said, David, I've been with the FBI all day long, because we had a handful of students who unwittingly had been talking with serious gang members and saying things like they were fixing to get involved, and they wanted us to school to know. A very good school, a school just like this one. Not 20 minutes from where I live, there is a gentleman who is a police officer whose daughter was a graduate of Mississippi State University who was getting on a plane to go to Syria. I think she was a graduate in mechanical engineering. I mean, he was devastated. He had absolutely no idea that his daughter had got pulled into ISIS. And guys, they have a way they do it, and you need to look at all that. Apps, there are a ton of apps that you need to know about that are on the bad side. You need to know what they're doing, and there are a ton of apps that I believe that you might find helpful. I'm not trying to tell you, you're going to have to figure out how much you're going to monitor and not monitor, but if you want to monitor, there are apps out there that will help you do that. And so that is in that particular presentation. Electronic cheating is a epidemic. We've got kids. My son a few years ago said, Daddy, I mean, this was so eerie. We all walked in and to get our results of our test, and he called out 3 names and said, you and you, y'all go to the registrar's office. Y'all just been kicked out of school because they got caught cheating electronically, and they were done. They didn't just get a 0. They were done. They were out of school. People losing money. They're losing time. They're losing reputation. And they think they're never going to get caught. It is an industry, what's happening right now as far as cheating is concerned. And I will use her for example. If I were up here as a teacher, I would notice a lot of people, but I would really be watching her for cheating. And the reason that I would is because she has hair down over her ears. And it's so easy for you to put an electronic device right there and all kind of different things to go along with it, but to give her all the information she needs for her test. Okay? That's just one example of what's going on. Fighting back, obviously, is a list of the things that we can do and to, try to protect our families, try to fight back against all this stuff. I just think we have to. And I mentioned to you about an open letter to a porn-addicted dad, and that is on there as well. I will tell you that, and I was sharing with Kevin earlier, that you're looking at somebody that became a Christian because of independent education. I was sitting in the first row and third seat of an English classroom when my teacher walked in, and she talked about something besides English. I was in the 10th grade, folks, and nobody had ever told me about Jesus Christ. Nobody. Nobody ever told my daddy. Nobody ever told my mother. Nobody ever told our family. But because my teacher loved me enough to come in that classroom and share Christ with me, it changed my life. And I went and told my best friend, who was my daddy, and it changed his life and my mother's life. And my best friend, who was a thug, it changed his life. And I can just keep on going telling you about that. I'll tell you about that story if you're interested in listening to it there. So this resource page is something that I hope will help complete, because you just cannot get everything into 90 minutes. You just can't. I mean, this is a challenge, and I promise you, I have been praying for you before I came over here, and I will continue to pray for you because I know that you love your kids. I know you love your kids. I know I love my kids, and it's a battle that we've got to fight. God bless you.
Dave, would you mind answering a few questions?
Sure.
If the audience has some questions?
Sure.
Folks, what comes to mind? Well, if you're like me, you're kind of in shock. I don't know what hurts worse, my stomach or my heart. I'm literally sick. As he was describing the dangers, I started getting sick. And I feel for you. Okay, we have a question. Great, thanks.
I'll tell you what I've run into. What I've seen is everybody has similar laws about things. Like, for example, if you are 14 years old and you send a nude image to somebody else, you're trafficking in child pornography. And there are some counties in Mississippi where they're going to put you in jail. There are some counties where they're going to say, we haven't got enough jail space to do this. I know some states, and I don't know what Texas does, there are some states that have come in and tried to say, well, we'll make a little record about this, but we're not really going to prosecute anybody unless it gets to a certain level. So as far as the law is concerned, it's just all over the board. That's been my experience with it. And it's just like the first story I told you about the daddy. He said, look, if I could prosecute the guy that was involved here, I wouldn't care if my daughter actually did some jail time, if it was going to mean that everybody else that was involved. Because, I mean, there were other people that were involved in spreading that around. And they knew who that was. But they, in the county that he was in, they didn't do anything. So it's just different depending on where you are. Thank you.
We've considered things to disable phones during the day, and we are actually looking at that. By policy, our students are not supposed to have their smartphones out during the academic day, because we take them up. We put them in smartphone jail, okay? And, that seems to work to a certain degree. Obviously, we don't have control over after hours or before school. But what I would hope that this program would encourage is a conversation, a dialogue in our school community about what we ought to be doing as both parents and the school to work together to protect our children. Let me share a couple of things I've shared with parents. I use the metaphor of a hand grenade. And I say, handing a smartphone over to a third grader is like pulling the pin on a hand grenade and handing it to them and say, here, you hold it for a while. And I don't mean that to be funny. I think it's just as dangerous to give them a live grenade as it is, or give them a smartphone as it is to give them a live grenade. And I've also said this to parents. I said, if I were king, and I'm not king, I'm just a head of school, but if I were king, I would issue an edict, and I would not give a smartphone to a person until they were 18 years old. And I might give them a flip phone, a dumb phone, when they get their driver's license. But you know what? I don't know that. I don't have that kind of authority. I can't tell you what to do with your children. And my guess is most of your children probably have smartphones. That's your choice. But here's what I would tell you if your child has a smartphone, and they're not going to like me for telling you this. Take it up at 7 p.m. and give it back to them at 7 a.m. At least do that. Don't give them access to the internet after dinner. If you just did that, you could safeguard your children. There's no guarantee, because they can be over someone else's house. They can go to the library. They can go anywhere there's a hotspot and access it. But at least within your home, take it up. Now, your kids are not going to like it. They're going to scream and complain, and you're going to be the only parent in school that does that. I've heard that many times. But let me tell you, I've got, like David, I've got a 32-year-old son and a 30-year-old son. My job was not to be their friend when I was their parent.
That is correct.
They're my friend now. I would say they're my best friends. But they knew that we had boundaries at our home. I didn't even allow them to have a TV with no cable, just rabbit ears. They couldn't have a TV in their bedroom, much less a computer. And I'm so glad that we didn't have to worry about smartphones when they were growing up. I feel for you folks who are fighting that battle. But if you just did that one thing, and what if every parent at Legacy said, that's our standard. 7 p.m. we pick it up, 7 a.m. they get it back. And if they get caught using it at school, they're not getting it back for a long time. What if every parent enforced that? We would be a much safer school. I'd like to have that conversation. And just looking at your body language, I think you agree with me. I bet you have more than a smartphone at home. I'm guessing most every parent has a laptop or a desktop or some other device that they can do their homework. They don't have to use their smartphone for that. Sure, absolutely. And I would say put it in a public place. Set their laptop in the living room where everybody can see what they're doing. That's what we had desktops when my kids, and the desktop was in the family room where everybody could see what's going on and positioned in a way there's no way they could hide what was going on there. And we also we purchased filters. We downloaded filters so they didn't have access. Yeah.
A couple of things, and I do cover that in that presentation, but I will say this. Be sure you understand that every filter can be beaten. All I've got to do is go out there and create a web page that's entitled JesusLovesYou.html, and I can download some pornography and I can put it on there, and somebody could go to that page and they think they're going to Jesus Loves You, but it's going to pull up the pornography, and there's no filter that's going to catch that. And I mean, American Family is good. I know all of them say they're good, but there are people out there trying to go through. I had a lady up at Phil Academy one time. She said she was explaining to her students what they weren't going to be able to do. And before she got through with her speech, one of the kids said, "Miss Hargett, is this where you think I can't go?" All these courses, all these years that I taught, all those places, the longest it's ever taken me to get to what any of us would call a gambling site, pornography. I always had 2 or 3, 4 things I would try to get to so I could show them that this filter is not what you think it is. You need the filter. They don't need to be able to type in sex and get sex. They don't need to be able to type in XXX and get all that. But just understand it's not going to block everything the first time, all the time. I want to say something else along what you said. I was up at a school one time, and I gave this whole presentation, and it makes me sick in my stomach to have to do this every time I did it. But I did it, and I had a daddy come down to me and said, "David, okay, help me a little bit. I've got a daughter that's in the 3rd grade, and all the other girls in the 3rd grade are getting cell phones, and I know I've got to get mine a cell phone. Tell me how you can help me." And I'm sitting there thinking, "Son, you've lost. This is going to be easy. You just lost. I mean, don't even try anymore." Because it's like he said, you don't want to be a parent. You're letting everybody else set your standards. And everybody else is not going to give account for how you raised your children. Only you are. And I just encourage you to think about that. I don't know what your standards need to be. I don't know what your training is. I don't know all that's going on in your house. Your kids are different than my kids. But please remember, you're going to have to give an account for how you raise those kids.
So I'm probably going to offend some folks here, but we've got a whole group, a lot of lower school kids who have smartwatches, Apple Watches. Just saying, if you got a smartwatch, you can get a lot of trouble with that. Yes. We've got 3 principals up there. Y'all want to answer that?
Hey, believe it or not, I want to help with that answer. And I'm not here. And I think I can. Yeah, let me help you with that. I want you to think about the things that I just said tonight. How many of those things do you want me talking about in front of? I would. People want me to come talk to students all the time. And I'm not saying I've never done that. But I'm telling you, I don't want to walk away thinking I've given some kid an idea he didn't already have. You see what I'm saying? And that is a difficult, difficult road to go down. That's my 2 cents worth. Now it's back over to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that judge came and spoke here a couple of years ago. It was right before I came here. So, yeah, Glenn, you want to make it? Let me appreciate you saying that, Glenn. Let me just break some news to you. If you have a middle school child, they know what sexting is. There's not one middle school child that doesn't know what that is. I don't care how sheltered life they've lived. They know a lot more than you think they know. And I mean, I've had parents say, well, my 8th grade daughter, my 7th grade daughter we haven't had the talk yet. And I go, how can you not? How can you not? If you think in this day and age that you can keep your children innocent that long, I'm sorry, but you're mistaken. You need to have that talk so that they are not shocked. Because I don't think they are shocked. I think that's a parent's naivete. They're not shocked. They've seen it. They've heard it. They're bombarded with it. If they watch TV in prime time, they're already knowledgeable. Glenn? So I'm going to ask for your help on something because, every one of your administrators love your children and want to protect them best we can. And we like to get on our platforms and we like to share things with you. But I think sometimes that goes in one ear and out the other for some of our parents. They just kind of expect that. And, they give responses like Glenn just shared with you. You all have a whole lot more influence on your peers than I or Glenn or Carrie or Kevin or Tiffany. You all, parents to parents, have more influence than any school administrator. We'll do our best to provide programs like this. We'll do our best to educate our children about these things. But it really needs to be a grassroots effort, and it needs to come from the parent body. I'm convinced of that. And if you educate your fellow parent, and if you set an example to them, we like to think teenagers just go with the crowd, but so do parents. The parents are influenced by their peers. And when they see a parent with courage to say, I'm going to take up that smartphone or that smartwatch, or I'm going to put limits, then you're empowering another parent to set limits in their homes as well. And don't buy the lie from your kids that you're the only parent that does that. That's a lie. You used it with your parents. I know you did, because I used it with mine, and it wasn't true. And don't try to be your kid's best friend. God didn't call you to be your kid's best friend. He called you to parent them. And as David said, you're going to be held accountable for that. And I'm just very, very passionate about this, folks. And I'm going to say it. I'm 60 years old, and now I'm like David. I have a grandchild now, and I'm scared to death for him. I'm scared to death. And thankfully, his parents do not let him have any devices, period. I think they let him watch one cartoon on Saturday, and that's it. He does not watch TV. But you know what? I've noticed something too. If I'm over there and I happen to check my smartphone, I get a text, he is drawn to that screen, and he's not given access. But there's something hypnotic about a screen. He goes right for my smartphone. There's a picture of him right there, by the way. Okay, screensaver. He goes right to that. Or if I have my iPad and I'm having to send an email, he is drawn to that. That has taught me a lot about the addictive nature of technology. Well, we could. Yeah. One more question.
One of the things that I took out, I didn't have time to put in this, was just what you just said. And what I wanted you to see was the video that went along with the songs. Because when they hear those words, they've seen the video, and they're thinking about what's on that video. If you look at the main presentation too, you'll see that in there. But it is awful. In a minute and 5 seconds, they talk about suicide, they talk about having sex, they talk about, just all people grabbing themselves. Just the whole 9 yards. Just in a minute and 5 seconds. And you were exactly right.
So let me close with this. I had a parent that was at that at the movie and saw me at the movie on Tuesday, and the Kirk Cameron movie. And she asked me the other day, says, "What'd you think of it?" I said, "It's okay. It's okay." I said, "I don't think it went far enough. I think it really. I wish it would have been more hard-hitting. I wish it would have been more specific about what we can do to protect our children." I was a little disappointed, actually. Not saying it doesn't have any value. I think it has some value. It was actually pretty well done, I think. But I didn't think it went far enough. And I said, I hope our speaker on Monday night goes further. And I think he did. And David, I want to thank you for being a prophet. And I mean that a prophet is someone who brings a message from God that the people need to hear. And I think you're doing that all over the South, all over wherever you go. And I want to thank you for that, David. And on behalf of our parent body, we're indebted to you opening our eyes to these things. And if we save one child, it was worth it. But I have a feeling we're going to save a lot of children. And I have a feeling that in a few minutes there will be a lot of smartphones going to be confiscated, or at least looked at, and apps opened, and or at least I hope your website is visited. I hope you get lots of hits on that website, David. I really do. Well, folks, thank you for being here. I'm going to close this in prayer, and then you'll be dismissed. Thanks. Oh, Father, I am deeply humbled and even saddened and even physically sick as I've learned so much more that I didn't know when we started this evening. And I'm just reminded of the sin-sick world we live in, the fallen, broken world. That was not your intention. That was not your desire for us. Father, you desire so much more for us. And yet, we are living in a world with the consequences of our sin. And not just the original parent's sin, I mean our own sin. Father, would you forgive us? Would you help us? Would you equip these parents to make the hard choices and the unpopular decisions for their children? Would you give them courage? Father, it is a spiritual war that we're in, and we're battling for our children's souls, and the stakes are high. Let us equip ourselves. Let us put on the full armor of God so that we may raise the next generation of Christian leaders. And let us be salt and light. May we be one school which proclaims, not here, not us. We have a plan, and we will set limits, and we will not tolerate this sin in our community. Father, we thank you for your grace and your mercy, and we cling to the hope of our redemption and ultimately our restoration. And it's in your most precious Son's name I pray. Amen. Good night, folks.